Welcome to the Love Charla, brought to you by Hispanic Heritage Foundation and Southwest Airlines. Today's Charla will be focused on sharing stories of love acts by Love people across the country over the past year, which, as we all know, has been a year of surviving COVID, social unrest, economic instability, educational crisis, food shortages, fires, floods, and everything else. Despite the devastating challenges, love has also been present, and that's LUV. So today, the Charla Oradorexes will be sharing the kindness they experienced, they witnessed, or they performed. As most of you know, our virtual Charla series for the past year have addressed issues in our community by giving our community an actual platform. And I want to shout out Ken, who's out there, my fellow Nicaragüense, and they're doing something tonight on addressing racism within our community. And we have done those charlas as a past, so it's important that we keep those conversations going. I've often said we are led by our community, not the other way around. The charla format is 5 minutes for each speaker with the purpose to share experiences, information, resources, issues, challenges, triumphs, and calls to action. The content will also be taped and shared across our social media platforms in case you miss it or want to share. It's important that we are aligned during this critical time for our community and country, and sharing that impact of our community during the past year will serve as an inspiration, hope, comfort, and possibility. So let's do this together, because that's what it's going to take to keep our community together and to move forward with love, because love is real. Please use the chat box to give us energy in your information or your perspectives during the presentations. Charlers are for all of us, not just the speakers. And just remember to set your setting for the chat box on all attendants, not just to panelists, which is the default for some reason. So take a minute to do that now and say hello to everybody and let us know where you're checking in from. My team will be sharing hashtags like hashtag heart in action, hashtag love charla, LUV, hashtag community charlas, and hashtag speak, listen, connect, and act. Some of the speakers are part of this amazing efforts that you can learn more about. They'll be sharing their information as well on the chat box. So let's keep it going. And we're excited to see that actually love can come to life through our Charla speakers. So to start, it warms my heart to introduce a friend, a partner in terms of our community that has supported our mission for 20 years. So as I came on board to the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, so did my relationship with Southwest Airlines. And the growth of our organization is thanks to Southwest Airlines. When somebody says, hey, can you do this program in fill in the region? We say, does Southwest fly there? And if they say yes, then you say, yes, we can go teach your kids how to code in that space. They also host our Youth Awards category for education. They make sure that we have Latinx teachers representing us in the classroom going forward. They're the official airlines of the Hispanic Heritage Awards on PBS, along with every single program we do, and we do a lot. So, and by the way, I just want to mention this because it drives me crazy. I also appreciate that I don't have to pay $50 round trip for every bag I check, in addition to the ticket price. Southwest never bought into that, and even now, I know have lost money by not selling middle seats during a pandemic, for goodness sakes, in order to keep us safe and comfortable when we fly. So thank you for that. Welcome my hermana out of Dallas, Texas, Laura Nieto, the Director, Community Outreach for Southwest Airlines.
Hey, Tony, thank you so much for that warm welcome. And thanks to each of you for spending your afternoon with us. I'm so excited about the afternoon and the speaker lineup that we have. You're going to be inspired by the incredible stories of acts of kindness that each of your speakers will share with you today. If you go to the next slide, please. This Love Charla is a fun way to end the month of February. As you all know, February is the Love Month, and well, we're the Love Airline. How many companies do you know who kind of wear their heart on their sleeves? Our employees that you see there are also called My Cohorts, and they put their heart in action every single day to deliver hospitality and a safe, reliable, on-time airline. For my Charla today, I'd love to share with you how their heart has beat strong during a very difficult year. When we started 2020, Southwest Airlines was really poised to have a banner year. Who would know that in just a few short months, the country would be swept with an incredible pandemic, bringing travel, tourism, and many other industries almost to a complete halt, and our lives would be changed forever. Even so, Southwest Airlines knew that we could put our warrior spirit and servant's heart to work. As we began to assess the needs and receive the needs from the communities and listen to what they needed most, early on, that was the need for travel. And that was to take frontline workers to COVID hotspots to areas where they were needed most. In addition, we were able to help humanitarian organizations as they transported PPE, ventilators, and other life-saving medical equipment to our communities all across the country. And when you think about it, as an airline, people stopped traveling. So in some cases, our planes were in the air with little to no passengers on board. And as you can imagine, we had lots of unserved beverages and snacks. So what did we do? Our employees jumped into action, pooled resources, and we were able to donate 13 tractor trailers full of snacks and beverages to 15 Feeding America food banks across the country, including other hospitals and community organizations who could use these resources. You know, our founder, Herb Kelleher, said, "We're a company of people. We just happen to fly airplanes." And it's the people of Southwest Airlines who make a difference during a time of need. In addition, we have loyal, engaged, and giving customers. And early in 2020, we did a rapid rewards promotion, and we were able to raise $650,000 for Feeding America, Team Rubicon, and the American Red Cross to help in their COVID relief efforts. So as you might know, there was need all across the country. Everybody was impacted, even the animal kingdom. And as you can see here, the Denver Zoo was in much need of fresh plants to help sustain the animals at the zoo. So what were we able to do? We were able to transport plants from a grower in a different city and take them over to the Denver Zoo so that the animals would be fed and taken care of. I think those are smiles on their faces. And by looking at that rhinoceros, I think his belly is pretty full. In addition, many of our local nonprofit organizations were hit very hard as money started to slow down. And we wanted to do what we could to make a difference. And you might agree with me that during this pandemic, our children, our most vulnerable communities, were hit very hard. Every year, Southwest Airlines hosts a Love Classic golf tournament and party. And because of the COVID environment and just the tough economic times, we made the decision to cancel the event. However, we had monies from previous funds raised, so we decided to get creative, and we engaged our employees and asked them, if you could donate to a local nonprofit organization, who would that be? And we just gave them the guidance that we want them to be organizations that support children, families, and those communities that are impacted by the pandemic. So what were we able to do? We were able to donate $1 million to 101 nonprofit organizations in every single city Southwest Airlines serves. And you can imagine, we did Zoom calls where we surprised every one of those nonprofit organizations. There were smiles, there were tears of joy, so that they could continue to take that donation and use it for their mission critical work. So the examples I shared with you are ways that we were able to support efforts behind the pandemic. But as we all know, 2020 also brought great social injustice, specifically with the Black communities. Southwest Airlines has been a longtime supporter of our African American, Latino, and Asian communities, But as we were listening to the injustices that was taking place, we realized we needed to take action. So we were able to make an additional donation of $500,000 to the National Urban League and 100 Black Men of America to help them continue to do the important work that they were doing. In addition to the COVID pandemic and the social injustice that was taking place, there were natural disasters as well. As many of you know, there were many wildfires taking place out west, specifically in California, where communities were devastated and the California landscape had really changed. So what was Southwest Airlines able to do? We were able to transport firefighters from the state of Texas all the way to California to help provide the much needed relief that those firefighters needed as they'd been combating the blazes for weeks on end. So I know these are just a few examples of how we were able to put our heart in action, but I continue to be inspired by the people of Southwest Airlines and people like you who are out there who see and listen to a need and act with love and kindness. So what better way to kick off 2021 than with a pledge, a kindness pledge. And we hope that you will join us in celebrating our 50th anniversary by logging on to southwest50.com, Acts of Kindness, to take the pledge and share your stories of kindness. And to get us kicked off, I love to offer every one of our speakers who will be sharing their inspiring stories of love and laughter and joy, a $100 Southwest Airlines gift card. When you're ready to travel, we will be ready to welcome you on board. If you will take a look at this kindness video, have a wonderful afternoon. I continue to be inspired by each of you. Please join our act of kindness today.
I pledge to spark acts of kindness.
One at a time.
Sprinkling compassion around the world.
I will practice hospitality.
Making people feel welcome,
cared for, and appreciated.
I will treat others with courtesy,
politeness,
and respect.
I will do the little things.
Because little things make a big difference.
I commit to putting my heart into action.
Sharing a smile and a little bit of love.
And making someone's day a little bit brighter.
Already, I'm getting the questions of, can I spend the whole $100 on drinks? But I believe it's supposed to be for your actual flight. So folks, let's keep it going here. Next up is Alberto Ferreras, who is a writer, filmmaker. He was the founder of Habla on HBO. If you've ever seen those vignettes, they're amazing. He's also the author of Be as in Beauty, a wonderful book that you can find on Amazon and anywhere else. He's award winner in terms of his films that he's done. Just one of the most talented, loving people I know, repping Venezuela. Alberto Ferreras.
You forgot to say handsome. One of the most handsome guys you've ever.
Guapísimo.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you for having me here. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is to set up my clock so I don't go over, okay? So we're gonna do 5 minutes right there. Well, no, this is probably gonna be shorter because my story is very simple. I mean, it is about acts of kindness and very specific acts of kindness that I was the recipient of, and I'm still the recipient of, let's put it this way. So you might not know by my manic demeanor, but I'm based in New York. I've been in New York for 30 years. And that picture that you're seeing right there, I took it. And it was pretty much a year ago. And it's all these people, we were basically applauding the healthcare workers at the St. Vincent's Hospital, what used to be St. Vincent's in Manhattan. Every day we would go there around 7 p.m. and everybody would clap. And it was beautiful that we were all recognizing, the efforts of the people who worked, in the health industry. However, there's a lot of other people that were supporting us and showing pretty much amazing kindness. And that's what I want to talk about. New York City has a reputation of being a ruthless city, well earned, a concrete jungle. But in my experience, it is not. It's a very crowded, but it's a very special place where I always feel surrounded by respect and kindness, even at 3 a.m. in the subway. This kindness for me, I think, for some people we always see it. Others, they notice it, during 9/11 or during the blackouts that we've had, and we've had several of them. Sometimes they lasted days, and these were days where like the entire city wasn't basically, well, the entire city. The second one was almost a week, and half Manhattan was pitch black every night, and there was very little crime or violence. But we saw again this kindness during the pandemic. When it all started, it was around. I remember I was working on an HBO show. I was working on Habla Now, which I was literally. We finished shooting on March 11th, and on March 12th, they said, "Yo, you can't go anywhere. We're closing everything," and it was very confusing and it was really scary. At the time, I don't know if you remember, we didn't know how we were catching it and how we were passing it. Some people were telling us to wear masks. Some people were telling us not to wear masks. So it was a very difficult moment, Now looking back, we can laugh at it, but at the time I was crapping my pants, as one would say. And I don't want to make the mistake of generalizing, because I'm sure that anyone from New York who's watching this video will tell me, oh, I saw people without masks. But in general, the people in New York City wore and wear masks all the time. And I think we do it out of respect and kindness. New York is a very diverse, very crowded space. And I think we've understood through the years that if we don't respect each other, if we don't treat each other with kindness that sometimes manifests in somebody yelling, "Get the hell out of my way," this balance of humanity will not prevail. And sometimes we have to say, I'm wearing a freaking mask because I care about you, so put yours on. But that is the way we show affection and care and kindness, as fast and furious as it may sound. But one of the kindest acts that I felt I was the recipient of happened repeatedly at the supermarket. And spoiler alert, my story is not that I fainted and somebody came over to my rescue. It was the repeated visits to the supermarkets in those days, in March, in April, when we did not know how we were contracting this thing. And I get a little verklempt when I tell a story, because I tell you, it's almost when something invisible becomes visible to you. Every day I would go to the supermarket looking for, the toilet paper, lentils, the things that we were all fighting for. And there were these very often young girls, Latinas, African-American girls who were working for minimum wage, and they didn't know they were going to contract that virus by doing their job. And they did it anyway. And they would get on public transportation, which is something I didn't have to do and I would not have done. And I cannot imagine in those days having to get up in the morning to go to work, to make, enough to survive, and putting my life at risk and my family's life at risk. So that is my story of sacrifice. Those are my 5 minutes. Please see around you, notice these things. They make a gigantic difference. Sometimes we think that the world is a horrible place, but sometimes when we see these little miracles, everything changes. Everything changes. Once we see the world as a different place, our entire life can literally turn around for better.
Thank you, Alberto. And it's important that we notice everything. And I'll be introducing Mario de la Torre later on, and we partnered on a project in recognition of farm workers and how they need to be protected as a vital part of our community and our country. So it's important. And now I'm so hypersensitive to farm workers, to the entire chain, to the person that delivers packages from from all the goods that we buy and food that we buy, as well as cashiers and those that are stocking the shelves, and in the meat packing plants and everywhere else that we used to take for granted, and I hope we don't anymore. Next up, repping Colombia and Brooklyn, is Carolina Rubio McWright, who is the founder of Touching Land, and hopefully will join our Loft Lab soon, because she is an absolute inspiration and someone I've gotten to know and count on for any kind of effort that is reaching our most difficult to reach and most needy communities. So Carolina.
Hey, Tony, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to share with you the incredible acts of kindness that I've been able to see. So Touching Land is a nonprofit where essentially we work with the essential workers, the undocumented immigrants that have supported our city, especially Brooklyn, that, as Tony has said, the farm workers. I teach them their rights through clay and through food and through textiles. Next screen, please. Next slide. And so 2 weeks after the pandemic started, I knew that all of my students were still commuting with the subway and were continuing to work and helping the community that needed childcare or whatever it was. So on Tuesday night at about 10 p.m., I got a call early April. It was one of my students that told me that she had 8 mothers that had COVID and were running out of food and had babies. So desperately, I didn't know what to do, but of course, it's my people, this is my family, these are my mamas. So I called my friend in the city that has a cafe, and she was turning it into a pantry. And so we organized, we spent the whole night up trying to get supplies, trying to get addresses, trying to get somebody to help us to drive. At that point, we didn't know so much about the pandemic, about, contractability and so on, but we organized. And next slide. By 7 a.m., we had 8 bags of groceries ready to go. And by that morning, my friend with Roots Cafe, that's her shop, she started offering free soup and sandwiches for anybody that needed the help, because we realized that there was a huge gap in our community and nobody was supplying or helping this community. Because what can a single mom do inside her apartment with COVID? She can't go and shop and leave her children in the apartment. It's a debilitating disease, correct? So by the next day, next slide, please. Thank you. We had 3 volunteers already ready to start driving these groceries door to door so that these women would not inconvenience, so that we treated them like the heroes and the amazing women that they are. So we had volunteers from our community start signing up. Within a couple of weeks, we had we were serving up to 50 families in need, because quickly, one family that we supplied 1 week of food then told us, you know what, my hermana Andrea down the street needs help. Can you give her my bag this week? And we didn't want to have families without food. So we quickly started getting donations from people, food, clothes, you name it. And next slide. Next slide. People were coming from Connecticut because we couldn't find food inside New York. It was pretty desperate. April, May, it was crazy. So we had people bringing food all the way from Connecticut. We had families and friends bringing everything that our community, the Latino community, because this coffee shop is in a Latino community, and we were supplying them with tortillas and anything that they would eat so that they didn't have to worry, because we knew they were not working inside. They had no job, they had no resources in order to feed their families. Next slide, please. We were able to feed over 50 families throughout the summer up until August, when things started opening up. And this is just a small slide and collection of people donating things. We had drivers every single day, every single time that we delivered this food, women were able to receive their groceries at their door. They didn't have to go anywhere. And so this is the community showing up. This is the community saying, you know what, I have an extra bag of rice. Let me bring it to my neighbors, my hermana. Next slide. And with my organization, I couldn't bring clay or food or textiles to my people. So I started saying, hey, what's in my toolkit? I have all these people I know. So I started contacting choreographers from Broadway, and we started offering these classes online. Next slide. And throughout the months, we started offering cooking classes. How can I use a chicken for 3 full meals? How can I regulate my emotions? How can I we started getting donations in kind of women donating classes and empowerment and art and yoga. Next slide. I'm watching my time. We also did not forget our brothers and sisters in detention that couldn't leave. So we started sending letters to them as well, organizing community through social media. That's all you need. Your tools are right there with you already. All you have to do is get some imagination and go. Next slide. Next slide. We had before the slide before that one, sorry. We were able to get donations of toys and clothing because kids were growing and families didn't have what to pay for toys or to pay for clothes. So we were able to donate. We were able to match them with those as well. Next slide. We graduated 15 women that took an 8-course mindfulness class because we wanted to protect mindfulness and self-regulation of emotions for this population. We're starting to offer these classes more and more. Next slide. Next, thank you. And I want to highlight Monica, Tony, and Mario, whom I don't know Mario, but I received a call and Monica said, listen, we have 1,250 masks that your community in Brooklyn can serve. And I said, yes, please. They sent it to us. Next slide. Because through one conversation, Mario and Tony and Monica were able to send these masks that were instrumental to a community that has been invisible. We don't, we talk about health workers, we talk about doctors, but we don't talk about domestic workers, about childcare workers, about the delivery boys. These are my people. And we were able to distribute these masks. Next slide. Next slide, please. And I want you to think about Alfredo because he really shook me and I think about him daily. Alfredo heard that we were distributing these masks and he came out of one of those restaurants in Brooklyn and he came running and he said, you know what? One of the cooks I work with passed away from COVID and I haven't been able to buy a mask. So this mask is going to save me. And so I think about Alfredo because what Antonio and what Mario and what Monica don't know is that they made a direct impact. The ripple effect of those conversations made an impact in Alfredo's life. Now he can send money to his family. Now he can be safe and now he won't die like he saw his friend die. So I want you to feel inspired and get out there and make the change because we already have all the tools we need. So thank you so much. And I'm excited to hear everybody else's story.
Oh my goodness, you're making me emotional. And I just can't tell you how much you inspire me and everyone else that's on this, Charla, right now. And this is why we want to be able to help you scale up everything you do and your vision and your impact. And Mario will be on the call later on. I was just texting with Monica earlier. It ended up being 2 million masks, mostly thanks to Monica, that were distributed. And it was kicked off with a phone call from Mario, and we'll hear from him later. But, I just want to make sure everybody that's on this understands. You're as good as the call you get and the call you make. It is not about you. That the fact that Mario called me and the fact that I was able to call Monica and Nick Gonzalez, the actor, and between the four of us, we got something started, but it's no good if we don't have a Carolina to put it into action. So Carolina, you are action. And I always talk about impatient activism. You're as impatient as I am, as impatient as Monica is, and as impatient as many of us on this call are. So thank you for everything you do. And anyone who's out there watching, we need to scale up her programs. I just have been inspired by you. So thank you for that. So next up, repping Mexico by way of Silicon Valley, two of our most dynamic leaders sharing the love in the tech space through mentoring, providing guidance and opportunities. They were also early code as second language fellows, teaching kids how to code when they were students at Berkeley. Dante Alvarado Leon is at WePay. Itzel Martinez is a senior software engineer at Pandora, but as a power couple, they also founded Latinas Engineering Leadership Program. Let's hear it, Dante, Itzel, one of my favorite couples.
Awesome. Hey, all. Great to see a lot of familiar faces. I would like to thank HHF, first of all, and Southwest for putting together this charla around a very important topic of kindness, especially during these challenging times. Today, Itzel and I would like to share with you all 2 personal stories of how we have experienced and being part of acts of kindness with our family members and close friends. Late last year, a close friend of mine tested positive for COVID, and he started having a hard time breathing. After seeing a doctor, he was diagnosed with POTS syndrome, which is a condition that affects blood flow in your body and makes your heartbeat increase rapidly anytime when you stand up. I found out through a group of past coworkers that my friend was not doing so well and his health was declining. He had also just moved from the US, from California to London for his dream job opportunity, but within a few weeks, he was diagnosed with this condition that changed his life completely. Thankfully, upon knowing about this, my friends and I got together. We pitched in to get him a surprise gift card so that he could get food and medical supplies, and we sent that to him in December before Christmas. My friend was not expecting this, but it meant the world for him. And most importantly, he shared that it made him feel so happy that he had a group of friends who were cheering for him and wishing for a speedy recovery from over 4,000 miles away from where he was. Now I try to check in with him on a weekly basis, and even a simple text of "How are you? I'm hoping you're doing well," and sharing some regular life updates makes my friends smile. The key takeaway from my story is to reach out to your close friends and family members. Even though we may be physically apart, we can still sense connection and support one another virtually. A phone call, text message, or video call can mean the world to someone around us. So if you feel comfortable, reach out to your loved ones and spread kindness. Thank you.
Hi, HHF Familia. I am so grateful to be here. Today, I want to share a story of an act of kindness that deeply moved my mom a couple weeks ago. On Wednesday, January 20th, my family received the news that my grandma had passed away from COVID. And the very next day, my mom had to go to an appointment that she couldn't reschedule. So after her appointment, as she was driving back home, she saw that there was a giveaway happening. And so she, out of curiosity, lined up, not knowing that she had accidentally lined up for a food pantry. And she received a box of tomatoes, green beans, and some lettuce, and that completely changed the way that she was feeling that day. Before her appointment, she couldn't hold back her emotions, and she was having a bad day. She was crying in her car. We were all feeling a lot of really intense emotions, but amidst all the pain, all the frustrations and despair that she was feeling, this act of kindness brought her so much joy, and she felt really blessed. My mom hadn't worked for over a month and a half, and the news of my grandma passing was just too much for all of us to deal with. But this act of kindness really changed the way that we saw the world. I know that oftentimes when we're all struggling and going through very hard challenges, it feels like we're alone in the struggle, but we are not. The message that I hope you all leave with is that in the most painful and challenging times, you are not alone. You have a whole community, thanks to the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, that is ready to help and support your families. And even though it may be hard to see, there is a lot of kindness in the world. If you or your family need somebody who needs help with, getting food, I like to share a list of food pantries available in California. Thank you all for taking the time to listen, and we're all in this together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry about your abuelita, but all of you need to follow Itzel and Dante on LinkedIn and other sites, because you have to understand the amount of work that they put in to mentoring kids, to making sure that they have the opportunities that they had to figure out on their own. And they want to share and radiate that knowledge that they've been able to accumulate, especially in the tech space. They do seminars on how to apply for internships in the tech space, on being comforted that they're not the only Latinx person in the room, especially as a female Latinx. And it's really important that we have leaders like Itzel and Dante in our communities. And I just can't tell you the space that you fill up along with my heart. So thank you too. Okay. Next up is Denise Solar Cox, co-founder of Project Enye, which I have discovered is a place for everything from films to podcasts to workshops and a lot of inspiration. So please welcome Denise.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me here to share my story with you. We're sitting here wiping our tears already, so just being in this space, sharing with you even virtually, has made a great impact on us already so far. So thank you so much for that. So last year, around April, during the time when it was, I feel like, the most uncertain, where people felt the most compartmentalized, where most of us weren't even leaving our houses to get groceries, as was mentioned before. Something that happened in Denver was that people would leave their front door and start howling at 8 p.m. I don't know where this started. And I started hearing the howls, and I told my husband, I'm just gonna go out there and I'm gonna howl too, because I just have to blow off this steam. And before you know it, he started joining me, and we were howling every night at 8 p.m. After about a week of howling, I started hearing a professional drummer. I thought originally that it was someone like maybe blasting their music or something, but then I thought, no, this is like a drummer. I'm not hearing things. This is a drummer. Someone's drumming in their basement while we're howling. This is crazy and cool, and I'm going to go back inside and watch whatever I was watching before I left the house to howl. Well, a few days later, I started hearing a live band play, and again thought, am I crazy? What's happening? And left my front door area, took a few steps out and looked down and realized that there was an 8-9 piece full-blown jazz band playing 2 doors down from our house. And slowly but surely, our neighbors were leaving their houses and wondering the same thing, like, what's going on? Where's this beautiful music coming from? And it was the first time that many of us were seeing each other in weeks. And night after night at 8 p.m., this band would play, and it happened and it's bringing back this moment for me, which is why I'm emotional right now, but it was so special. It was like, I didn't know that I needed that. I didn't know that music could connect me to something meaningful during a time where all we were doing was trying to figure out, why is this happening? And it connected my small block, and eventually our neighbors started inviting other neighbors, and we brought out lawn chairs, and this went on for months, at least 2 months. And mind you, at Project Enya, we stopped production on everything. We stopped everything that we were doing, including making a film and also working on our podcast. We just had no idea how this was all going to turn out, and everyone was just at that edge of their seat kind of feeling. And I realized that my neighbor, Paul Romaine, was doing what he knew how to do. He could play the drums, and he could invite his friends who were musicians to share their beautiful music. And he had no idea he could transform a neighborhood. And I thought, what can I do? We can bring camera equipment and recording equipment, and we can make a podcast, and we could share what's happening on the street with the world. And to this day, the name of the podcast is called "And the Band Played On, Finding Joy in a Global Pandemic" is our most highly downloaded episode. And it makes me feel so good that I could share such a beautiful moment of connection and peace and solidarity through music with everyone in the world. And so my invitation to you is to remember that you also have a gift. You also have a metaphorical pantry, or your own drum set, or some place that you can reach for to give to at least one other person. And maybe you can call on some band members, or for me, my team, and make something. And maybe you could share that something. And then chances are it'll change your little corner of the world. And that's really the best we can do. And I think sharing it like we're doing here makes all the difference, because really when these things happen on one block, it changes lives. But when we can share it broadly and let people know what is going on here, that's when we can all celebrate it together, feel a sense of pride and also ownership that we're doing something at a time where we feel the most helpless. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share that. If you want to hear the episode, it's on Apple Podcast, and it's called The Selfish Latina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was so powerful. And music is exactly what we need to share the love. And I have to share with you that when COVID first started, I went to the park that's next to my house, and I just brought my guitar, and I was just playing like All You Need Is Love. And all of a sudden I hear all these voices and little kids and older people were all singing along. Oh, just hits you hard. And it was just so random and they're singing along to that part of it. There's a beauty in that. So thank you very much for sharing that beautiful story. Next up is my man who holds it down in LA, but all over the country as well. When he talks about being an inspirational comic, I met him almost 20 years ago. He's been in my life ever since, and he's been in the lives of tens of thousands of young people who are now grown people that still remember when Ernie spoke to them when they were in high school or in middle school and other ages. He is an empowerment comedian, a mental health coach, a Latino edutainment. And I just want to bring on one of the really, really good people, a tipazo, Ernie G. And he will introduce the next speaker. So I get to take a couple of speakers off.
All right. All right. So great to be with my love, Charla, Hispanic Heritage Foundation familia. So my name is Ernie G. I'm a Latino comedian from Los Angeles. I'm on a bunch of TV shows nobody watches. I'm so famous, I have to tell you how famous I am. But I actually was on Alberto's HBO show, Habla. I was on Habla again over 10 years ago. So I was on tour with George Lopez and Gabriel Iglesias. I'm not fat, I'm fluffy, but I've dedicated the past 17, 18 years of my life to doing empowerment, inspirational comedy. I was the national spokesperson for the Hispanic College Fund, who flew me all over the country. And I've literally empowered and inspired hundreds of thousands of students to not only to go to college, but to lift their vibration and to let their life shine. So in March of 2020, I had a teen empowerment day scheduled for March 14th, where we had 100 teenagers. We were going to inspire them. We were going to teach them emotional intelligence and mental health awareness, the power of forgiveness, having an attitude of gratitude, writing a thank you letter to their parents, and then reading that thank you letter to their parents, which Latino kids very rarely do. And there was a tearjerker that we had done a year prior to that. And then on March 12th, Eric Garcetti canceled every gathering of 30 people or more. And in the next 2 weeks, I lost over $20,000 worth of live gigs. So what did I do? I pivoted. I went online and I started posting inspirational messages. Stay strong out there. We're in this together. I got a friend of mine named Dr. Enrique Ortiz, who has a PhD, and Ernie G and Dr. E did epic empowerment every night on Facebook from 8 to 9 p.m., thinking that a few of my friends would watch it. And within a week, we had thousands of viewers from all over the world. And Dr. Enrique and I stayed online every night from 8 to 9 p.m. for 3 months straight. We went on every Monday through Friday. And then people were saying, my teens need to hear you. My kids need to hear you. So I started something called Zoom at Noon for Teenagers. I had over 50 teenagers come onto a Zoom call on Monday. And I thought the call was going to last an hour. It lasted almost 3 hours. And students just reported and revealed all the trauma that they were going through, the isolation that they were feeling, the depression that they were going through. And I just created this safe space where students were able to just be themselves. We met Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which was supposed to be from 12 to 1. It ended up going from 12 to 2 every day. Then I had to start another one. And I was not getting paid for any of this. I had lost all of this money. And I was like, how am I going to keep my career going? Just stay the course, bro. People need you. People need mental health awareness. They need to be able to have a safe space to share. And I just trusted, like Paulo Coelho said in The Alchemist, when you commit, the universe conspires to support your commitment, which is something I've been teaching to teenagers for years. One of my former students that I spoke at his high school, and then I was the keynote speaker at his college graduation, calls me and goes, bro, you spoke at my high school, you spoke at my college. I'm getting my master's degree, bro. Would you come to my graduation? I'm like, oh my God, yes, dude. He was going to be one of my mentors for my teen empowerment day. And when he found out that everything got canceled, he goes, dude, I think I can get you sponsored through my org. I applied for this big sponsorship. I got a $30,000 grant to do my Zoom at Noon for Teens calls. And now that's what I'm doing. So that enabled me to do all kinds of other pro bono stuff because I kept getting approached by all kinds of different schools, different organizations. Today is National TRIO Day. TRIO is a support service program in colleges all over the country. Today I have 4 gigs on behalf of TRIO in Iowa and in Florida and in California, and I'm doing this with you all. And in this capacity of giving mental health to as many people as I can for free, because I've been so blessed and have gotten plenty of paid gigs. A kid who I performed with a few years ago at the Brea Improv, he's a Latino comedian who saw me as an inspiration, and I didn't even know this. And then we both got booked at the Brea Improv, and he said he was all starstruck when he met me. Oh, Ernie G, he has cerebral palsy, and he kind of talks like this. And I go, bro, you remind me of another famous comedian named Chris Fonseca. And he goes, dude, that's my hero. He goes, I love what you're doing, but I want to do what you're doing, Ernie G. And I got a call a few months ago that Miguel El Chueco Lugo wanted to be like an Ernie G inspirational comedian. I said, bro, I'd love to help you. So I became his official mentor, and he invited me to speak to his Zoom call that he leads for disabled Americans. And I got to do this Zoom call with Down syndrome's kids who have autism, and Miguel was leading that Zoom. I inspired that Zoom, and now Miguel is on this call. And this is the first national exposure that my mentee, Miguel Lugo, is going to get as a kid with cerebral palsy, who's now a grown adult and using comedy and laughter to inspire others. So the magic and power of making yourself available. When you commit, the universe conspires to support your commitment. I am available to you all. Thank you, everyone on this call, for everything that you're doing. But I also want to thank you for everything you're doing and everything you've gone through that no one knows you've gone through and no one knows that you're dealing with. But you still have overcome that and have risen up during this time of crisis. I love you guys. I'm so proud to be part of the Hispanic Heritage Foundation's Charla, and let's keep spreading the love, okay? That's me. Let me introduce to you one of the top Latino comedians in the, no. That was my intro. Miguel Lugo is a funny Latino comedian that I've had the honor of working with at the Brea Improv, and he is now launching his inspirational, motivational speaking career. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my buddy and my mentee, Miguel El Chueco Lugo.
Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you. You have no idea how much I appreciate you as a friend, as a comedian, as a mentor, as a brother. And of course, I want to thank the Hispanic Heritage Foundation as well for putting this together, for making it happen, for having me on also. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about my act of kindness, which I at first considered it an act of kindness towards me. Just to share a little bit, on December 31st, 2019, I got a series of multiple strokes, 3 to be exact, three strokes. So I tell people that 2020 was the best year for COVID for me, because I was stuck at home recovering anyways. I couldn't go out. So for me, you know, we gotta see the positive in things. So as I was at home recovering, learning how to walk, learning how to talk, I had to learn how to do all of that in roughly about September, I got a call. I got a call from a nonprofit that was interested in myself hosting Zoom classes, and they wanted me to talk about how to set and reach goals. I was more than excited to do so. However, I was still recovering. It was such a struggle for me to get on a Zoom call and speak for 45 minutes. I would do this every Friday, and immediately after the call, I would go to bed because my voice was just completely done. Now we're still doing these calls today, and the reaction that I get from my clients is I cannot even begin to describe how what I considered an act of kindness towards myself, they are looking at it as an act of kindness towards them. Just the fact that clients with disabilities very much like mine are now beginning to see that they can actually set and reach goals themselves. I tell people, I share, yes, I am a disabled adult, but before being a disabled adult, I am a man, I am a husband, I am a stepdad, I am a positive contributor to society. So I am living proof that anything that you set your mind to can be accomplished. And on that note, I will yield the rest of my time. Thank you guys so much.
Amazing, bro. I love it. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you,
Thank
bro.
you. Brother Miguel, thank you for all you represent, all of it. And you're living proof, as you said, hermano. Stay close to us. There's a lot more we need to do together. And you're very powerful. Powerful in a way that a lot of us can't be in terms of what you're delivering here, in terms of inspiration, in terms of messaging, and in terms of sensitivity that we all need to be more aware of. So appreciate you, brother. You made me tear up. That's happened several times already during this Charla.
Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. And for everyone that's asking, all of this content is being recorded and will be shared. Again, please put all panelists, not just and attendees. So make sure that you're not set to all panelists, because I'm seeing amazing comments go flying by, especially during Miguel's segment. But it's important that you're sharing it with everyone, because we all need to share in it. So representing Bolivia, please welcome Gracie Rivera Oven. She is a community activist in Montgomery County in the DC area. And I just have to tell you, when we first were planning the Love Charla, talking about acts of kindness, you know how people say random acts of kindness? Well, they're not random when they're happening every single minute of every single day. When all of this broke, Gracie was right there unloading food off a truck. Every minute there was some sort of an effort for the holidays, for every single day. She was treating as one of those holidays where you feed people during Thanksgiving. No, she was doing it every single day, in terms of vaccines, in terms of masks, in terms of getting the word out. And I have to tell you that over the years, I've seen her in action, and I talk a lot about how the word act is in the word activist. And this is somebody that acts constantly and is a real inspiration to me here in my hometown. So Gracie, bring it.
Thank you so much, Tony. And I just want to say, Miguel, it's an honor to go after you. And I really got a little bit tear up because it's just wonderful to see your kindness and your inspiration. But thank you, Tony. My name is Gracie Rivera Oven, Graciela, for those, but usually people butcher my name a lot. So Gracie is good. My son, Marco, and last March, March 15th, when the schools were closing, we had already been working for years in a community in Montgomery County. Montgomery County, keep in mind, is a very affluent community, one of the richest counties in the country. So you would not think that we have a lot of poverty, but we do. Mainly our brothers and sisters who are in the Latino community. We have a trailer park. So as soon as the pandemic started hitting, I knew that our brothers and sisters were going to be in trouble, and food sustainability was going to be a huge issue because I know a lot of them were starting to lose their jobs. So we started with 20 families. I reached out to a good friend of mine. I'm sitting inside a gallery. So this is an art center. It's called Black Rock Center for the Arts. And as some of you know who know me, I love the arts. And I called my good friend, Lynn Arndt, who is the director of this center in my hometown in Germantown. I said, listen, I really just need a place to assemble a few boxes for the folks 20 families at the trailer park. I don't think this is going to be for a long time. I think this is just going to be temporary. And she said, okay. Another good friend of mine from END, Eldad, said to me, I have a couple pallets. And I said, can I put them in my garage? And she said, no. So I learned lingo of what pallets are, what galleries are, and they're big things. So we actually got a donation of 10 pallets of food. And immediately we started, assembling. And then in a week, we grew from 20 families to 50. Fast forward to almost a year later, and this is my son, Marco, and this is about kindness. I needed a volunteer, and this guy came in as my full-time volunteer, who, by the way, Ernie G spoke at his high school many years ago. Full circle here, people. So Marco, became my full-time volunteer. He got laid off from his employer, who's a good friend of us, Dr. Martinez. And he said, as long as you give him back to me when this passes, right? So now, today, we deliver to over 1,400 families in our community. And not only that, but most of those are door-to-door deliveries to folks who have no transportation. And that's a lot of folks in our community. So as we were going through this pandemic, then we saw the COVID kits came in as an idea because we had families calling saying, I'm infected, my child's infected, my family, what should we do? So we started a COVID kit, which has everything from our thermometer to pediatric, you name what you have in there. And I also added, my honey and my té de manzanilla, like a good Latina, right? So we did all that good stuff all this time, and we kept adding things. Then we needed telemedicine. So I found a great partner, Dr. Izquierdo. She did it for free. Telemedicine, our folks needed to get, tested. And you guys know early on, our folks in the front line, our essential workers, they were asking to be tested, but they didn't have a doctor. So it was costing them money to get tested. So we started that. Then we said, look at the overrepresentation of Latinos getting infected with COVID, but they're not being tested enough. So we started a partnership. We wrote a couple grants, and we started doing COVID testing in our neighborhoods of Black and Brown communities. During this whole time, as you know, you have Thanksgiving. And Marco now is the coordinator. So the county, called us and said, we have all these families, can you adopt them? How many? 600. and Thanksgiving is next week. So I said, sure, we'll adopt him. And this guy will have a heart attack. Why are you doing this to me, Mom? And the drivers, right? The volunteers, the acts of kindness that we saw in our community. So if you look at our chart of people who are actually our partners, we have almost 22 partners. And some of them are also food distributors in a sense that have been in the community, but the need was so incredibly great. And just a couple of the stories I want to share with you. Our first COVID family was a young woman who got infected at a nursing home where she worked. She had a 2-year-old baby. They were all infected. We took them food. We fed them for weeks until they got better. And then every Monday for the next 7 months, she will come and drop off diapers and wipes and formula, just like we did for her. And just the acts of kindness that we have seen, we actually were able to get a young man a surgery that he needed to save his eyesight through one of our partners. And just the amount of toys we collected for, within a week, we collected over 3,000 toys for children in our community. And now we're doing our Easter basket, our second Easter basket distribution. Just to compare, we did 300 last year, and this year we're going to be doing over 1,000. So we are very thankful to everyone who's been our partner. Thank you, Tony, for highlighting us. But lo hacemos con cariño, lo hacemos con amor. And we also do it because our people deserve it. They deserve that love because they are putting their lives on the line every day. Gracias.
Thank you, Gracie and Marco, and let me know how we can help. I know that my kids and my entire family were supporting some of your efforts when we did it for the holidays a couple of years ago, and we want to be able to help some more, please. Thank you again for everything you do in my community right here in the greater Washington area, Gracie and Marco. And so next up, I just want to say, did you know that nearly 30% of new HIV cases in the United States are in the Latinx community? It's critical that we're getting the right information, access to testing, and access to support. And we are absolutely thrilled to welcome Ronaldo Vasquez, who is the HIV testing provider and the Let's Stop HIV Together ambassador for Puerto Rico for the CDC. Thank you for joining us, Ronaldo. When I did research on you, your impact is being felt in a very important space. I was working on these issues in 1990. And to be able to look back on almost, 30 years ago and to see that we're still dealing with a lot of these issues, your role is more important than ever, especially with young people. So, Ronaldo.
Thank you, Antonio. It's as you say, there's still a lot of stigma in the street, and we're working towards that. I want to start by giving thanks to you and the opportunity to be in this Love Charla, talking about acts of kindness during COVID-19. I hope everyone is good and having a great day. My name is Ronaldo Vasquez, and as Antonio said, I work for QAI as an HIV tester provider. Also, I'm a CDC ambassador for the Let's Stop HIV Together campaign for Puerto Rico. Every day we got a chance to make acts of kindness towards others. There's no small act, or every act counts. And I have been helped already not too long ago, before the pandemic, by people living with HIV. I got diagnosed in 2018. I was in depression and in constant anxiety, but having conversation with people living with HIV helped me get back on my feet. I was given back my strength to overcome barriers and have greater control of my physical and mental health because of the help I received from those people living with HIV. Also the support of my family and friends. And finally, when COVID-19 arrives, I was helping others as others helped me during the way. As a CDC ambassador for the Let's Stop HIV Together campaign, it's important for me to eliminate stigma and new HIV infections in our Latinx communities. As you said, it's highly affected here in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I have a personal mission to create a safer world, and that includes everyone feeling safe and secure. For some people, what gives them security is knowing that they will have food that day. Others would like to know more about their diagnosis and health from now on. And I get to identify these needs during COVID times, talking with people living with HIV, new diagnosis. We'll also find ways to improve conditions for people living with HIV during COVID times. We get to deliver food for those in need, condoms, and HIV education. of all, my favorite acts of kindness is to be there for other people, to be a good listener for people that are struggling, that does not have their friends or family during the COVID time because of the lockdown. A phone or video call away just had a great impact, especially for those feeling alone, cheering them up, like talking about topics they enjoy, reminding them they were not alone, that there were people like living with HIV like me, going out, like helping others. That's what we need. Sharing conversations that help us heal and grow during pandemic time. People really appreciate being heard. And that's all we need, small and repeated acts of kindness. This is how community and people with living with HIV take care of each other. We give ourselves strength, and we give ourselves the strength we need when we feel like vulnerable. I created a platform on social media soon after COVID lockdown to educate about HIV. And to my surprise, I was receiving messages from people that recently got their diagnosis, mostly on their early 20s. In every conversation, you could see anxiety, depression, fear, and insecurity. I see myself in every conversation, but that now we're doing it with heart and purpose. It really helps a lot for a person living with HIV to have someone to talk to. And as I said myself, I got myself isolated when I was diagnosed. So I got the chance to be there to other people to get them to be heard. We know adherence to treatment is important for people living with HIV, and mostly because of depression and anxiety, people living with HIV forgot to take their medicines or treatment. It felt great to be a personal reminder for those people living with HIV, struggling during COVID times to take their meds on time or every day. It gives me satisfaction to be here with other people. Your guys are doing amazing and great work for our communities. But what we all need to be doing, it's simple, as we said before, small acts of kindness and repeated. It's what people need. And right now, by being there, supporting or hearing other people what they need to express, it does a lot. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ronaldo, and thank you for everything that you represent in terms of this space that is often overlooked, sometimes forgotten, but it's still very prevalent. And we appreciate you being able to share your experiences, because that is really courageous, and we're all the better for it. Next up is one of the most beautiful souls whose actual job is to make everyone beautiful. He's a fashion designer out of LA. Mario de la Torre makes everyone more beautiful and everything more beautiful. So he's going to hopefully talk about what I'm leading into, but I do want to lead into it because if somebody can, if all the speakers can go on mute, please. But I ended up getting a call from him late at night. And anybody that knows me knows you don't really call me late at night because I usually don't answer. But so when he called me, he asked me, he told me that he and a bunch of other sewers, this was in the beginning of COVID, and a bunch of sewers and people in the fashion industry weren't able to work. But Mario wanted to work, and he wanted to work for our community and protect our community. And he asked me for ideas, and we thought of farm workers. And in the middle of the night, the two of us were on the phone, and the first thing I did was call Monica Ramirez. I said, I know just who to call. And then Monica then, of course, had a whole plan for it while she was listening to what we were saying. And then from there, I called another good friend of mine named Nicholas Gonzalez, who's an actor. And he was on The Good Doctor at that time. And I know Ray knows him as well. And Nick immediately said, I'll be your spokesperson. What do you guys need? So the four of us, within 24 hours, launched this campaign called #Mask for Farm Workers. I've actually got a vintage mask that Mario designed. And so let me turn it over to Mario de la Torre, who is a beautiful, beautiful human being that I am privileged to have in my life. He's a light.
Thank you, Tony. I mean, I'm just following you following your lead. You know, I love you guys. I am beyond honored to share space with all of you here on the Zoom, and in general. Like Tony, you're like a big brother, a mentor, a person I can call at any given moment, and always gives me the greatest advice in the world. I mean, I love you guys so much. I thank you guys for just everything that you do. The Hispanic Heritage Foundation. I mean, you guys are doing amazing, beautiful things, and you know, you guys are literally like changing people's lives. I being one of them. The Mass for Farmers campaign is just, it happened like overnight. Like Tony said, me and my wife were just sitting at home trying to figure out what are we gonna do. Everything was shut down. Even our own building where we manufacture was shut down, and we were just trying to figure out what can we do to help our community. And I started making masks for Children's Hospital because initially everyone was saying, you know, we got to help the people in the front lines, and that being for us, the Children's Hospital has helped my daughter. She has hypothyroid, so we started making masks for them. And me and Tony got together. I called them, told them that we wanted to do something. We need to help more people, and we did come up with the Mask for Farm Workers together. And it was the only call I had to make. Like literally, when I thought of who can I call, what can I do, the only person that came to my mind was you, Tony. And I mean, I have the most tremendous amount of respect for you. Like, and you picked up my call, and we just started brainstorming. And Monica, who's an angel sent from heaven, obviously, came into the picture, and we just figured, you know, the farm workers is ideal because no one's helping them, no one's talking about them, and if anyone's frontline, it's our farm workers. Without them, we can't survive. Humanity can't thrive without food. There is no humanity. So we just started like literally overnight, and you know, I got my whole crew together and said, okay, let's just see what we have right now. We had a few rolls of fabric, and we just started cutting. I started making a couple of different designs, but we wanted to make masks that actually do protect. And we came up with this design here, which I'm wearing one of them. And basically what we wanted to do is protect our people. Like the farm workers, they're our gente, they're the ones that give us our daily nutrition every single day. And it's literally from that one phone call, fast forward to now, we're over 2 million masks in, and I do believe that every mask does save a life, because I've personally seen the downside of COVID. My best friend's little brother just recently passed away from COVID, and he was only 38. So like, you know, this thing has hit home in more ways than I can ever describe. And one of our greatest friends and one of our fellow sewers, he also passed away recently. And it's just mind-blowing to me that the farm workers, who are the essential workers, weren't getting any love, weren't getting any protection. And thanks to Tony and the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, Monica, like we made it happen. And it's probably been one of my greatest missions in life. And I never really, to be honest with you, took into consideration the people that provide us with food until COVID, until like was going to the market and couldn't get fruit, couldn't get anything, because everything was just literally being taken. The moment it's put on the shelves, it's gone. So, I mean, we have to protect our people. We have to protect our farm workers. So this was our way of helping them not only survive, but thrive. And it just put into the spotlight the importance of our people. And so talking to Tony, talking to Monica, we just started with very little, with literally the fabric rolls we had. And, you know, Monica called me with Tony one day and said, hey, guess what? Like, we got someone to donate to the cause. And then she told me Walmart wants to give $50,000 to help the Mask for Farm Workers. And I almost fainted. I was walking on the street and I was like, what? So, I mean, it literally, when you set intentions and they come from the heart, the universe finds ways to provide us with everything that we need. And I mean, it's been one of the greatest journeys so far in my life. I mean, between Tony, Monica, Nicholas, my wife, like Sylvia, all these other people that have all done their part to make this initiative not only thrive, but like successful. It just sends this joy to my heart because, I mean, we got to take care of our people. And this was literally because of COVID, it put into perspective a lot of things in my own life that maybe I took for granted, maybe I just never realized it, but now I'm like, you know, it's part of my life goal to continue to do this, to continue to protect our people, to find avenues and different ways to be able to share what we've done and, you know, hope that other people join the movement. And a lot of people have. I mean, there's mom and pops in different parts of the country that are all making masks for farm workers. And it's literally one of the greatest experiences of my life. The feedback I've gotten from this, I could, you know, I can't describe that love that we talk about, that vibration. It's been the most powerful, the most beautiful thing I felt, aside from my wife and kids. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have reached out to thank us, to tell us what a great job we're doing, and it feels great to really be part of a movement that is saving lives. I mean, I get emotional just thinking about it, you know, and I owe it all to you, Tony, to Monica, to Nicholas, to the entire team, to Hispanic Heritage Foundation, because we couldn't have done this without you. And even to this day, I still get people that, you know, I'm in the fashion industry, but I'm not like a famous designer or anything like that. And can't tell you how many people have stopped me and said, hey, aren't you doing that Master Farm Workers thing? How can we help? And it's just mind blowing. It's such a beautiful thing. So many people realize the importance of our farm workers, and now they're all doing their part. And everybody's, you know, either they're joining our movement or they've made their own, which is beautiful because we all got to do our part to help. And like, I'm very grateful to you, Tony, and to the Hispanic Heritage Foundation for just opening up that window for us to be able to do what we've done. And we're just going to continue to do the work and continue to try to bless as many people as possible. And hopefully this pandemic ends soon. But even after it ends, we're still going to continue to do it because it's not just COVID. I mean, our farm workers deal with pesticides, they deal with dust, they deal with all these other things that without a mask, you know, they're breathing all this into their lungs. And I didn't know how bad it was, but a lot of farm workers, they don't even get soap to wash their hands. They're out in these cramped environments where it's like maybe 2, 3, 4 families in a one bedroom. So the risk involved with how many people can't social distance because they don't have the option to, it's scary. And like every time our farm workers go to food, they come home to their families and they run the risk of not only endangering their lives, but their families' lives. And we've seen it happen. So it's very important that we continue to do this. It's very important that we get as many people as possible to join this movement because it's not going to stop. Even after COVID, it can't stop. These people are dealing with pesticides, dust, all these other harmful things that can affect their lungs, can affect their bodies, and we just want to keep them safe. That's our goal.
Mario. I
you
appreciate you, brother, and I just want to make it very clear that his heart was the catalyst for this effort. If he hadn't called me, I wouldn't have called Monica or Nick or anyone else, and we wouldn't have been able to work with Carolina and others in order to get this in the hands of people. And I just want to be clear about this too. I was holding Mario's tequila in one hand, Monica's tequila in the other while they went to work. So and then Nick, I was in the crook of my arm, I had his tequila. So I just want to make it clear what my role was. And then the other thing that I just want to mention too is that we ended up honoring farm workers because of this inspiration during our PBS program that is going to be nominated for an Emmy because of that phone call. I had a greater appreciation for farm workers. I always appreciated them, but I had a greater appreciation every time I took a bite of food from the comforts of my home. Our nutrition is based on putting themselves on their labor and putting themselves at risk so that we can eat comfortably at home. So I thank you, Mario, because it wouldn't have started without you. And your spirit is what catches it forward. And I also want to mention, just in general, as everyone's talking, because I'm going to go on to our last few right now, but what we're seeing here, which I think is so important, is through these works, we're helping people to not feel helpless in addressing some of these issues. I'm not going to feel helpless if I'm supporting Carolina or Gracie or Mario or the work of Miguel and Ernie and everyone else that has spoken on this. And that is the key to even what Southwest is doing within their internal network, is that their volunteers don't feel helpless because they have an outlet. So all of these speakers, I just want to thank them because they make sure that we don't feel helpless and that we feel empowered to be able to help our community in some way. So with that, I'm going to try to keep this going because we're nearing towards the end, and I just don't like the thought of not getting to everyone because everyone's been so powerful so far. So hang in there with us. We have about 3 more. So next up is Candelario Cervantes. He's the head of the National Latinx Alliances for Teach for America. He is a remarkable resource. One of those people that I call the same way Mario called me when it comes to education. I call Candelario. I call him for advice. I call him for guidance. I call him for energy. I call him for platforms in order to execute our programs. Candelario, let's hear it, brother. Houston, represent.
Hi, everyone. First, I am just feeling so inspired by all of the speakers and all the work. So much gratitude. So I am Candelario Cervantes. My pronouns are he, him, his, and él. And I have the privilege of leading Teach for America's National Latinx Alliance's work. First, I would like to recognize and honor the Native and Indigenous lands that we all occupy. For me, this would be the Karankawan and Coehuiltecan nations. I hope everyone will take the time to think about the lands you occupy and elevate our Native and Indigenous voices in your communities. As we have been speaking about acts of kindness, I'd like to share my belief on kindness. And this is anything that you can do to leverage your earned and unearned privileges to make it easier for the next person. This is something I try to do in my day-to-day activities. My thoughts and prayers are with our community members in Texas, now moving into the recovery part of this disaster. And I want to thank all of our community members, organizations, and partners that have come together to support us in this moment. My wife and I were able to help our neighbors and family members turn on water or turn off water from the city and drain their water pipes to protect them from rupturing, because many in our community don't have to think about this, and they've never had to deal with this type of cold in Houston. We also had to make the decision to invite others into our home during the time of COVID, because we had the privilege of being one of the few that maintained power during the coldest part of the storm. Knowing that this action could put us and their families at risk of contracting or spreading COVID-19. And normally, that wouldn't have even been a question for us. We would have had this house filled with our family members and community members. So I am been thinking about that a lot, that we had to even pause to think about doing that. There are countless stories like this happening in Texas, which really does warm my heart. I would also like to thank our educators who have really been holding our communities through all of this. They have not only been working with our parents and caregivers to ensure our students are receiving the education they deserve, but they have also been the ones caring for their social and emotional wellness and sharing information to our communities. As we all know, our educators hold so much trust in our communities and are the ones that our caregivers and parents look to for information on not just education, but on many items, including how to manage this pandemic. Our educators have been the ones also helping our children navigate the grief from the loss of loved ones due to the pandemic. They have also been very creative in ensuring our students are receiving the education promised to them by first learning these new virtual learning tools and thinking outside of the box to support them, from changing classroom hours to accommodate our students that have had to go back to work or had to go to work to support their families because of the economic crisis brought on by this pandemic. Printing and delivering learning packets to students that don't have access to internet, the tech equity gap. And we also seen our educators do so much to customize learning for students and increase parent and caregiver engagement, all while coping with the challenges and uncertainty of the coronavirus pandemic on a personal level. Many see this as these actions as part of their role and their work, right? So I think it's even more important that we offer kindness to them in whatever way we can. One thing my colleagues and I at Teach for America have been doing is that we've been sharing out all the amazing resources from our national partners and collaborators, many that have supported our Latinx community and our communities of color when the federal government failed to provide these resources, factual information to support our communities. We've also stood up a resource hub that supports educators with wellness tips, resources for virtual teaching, including free trainings, and this is open to everyone in the community. I'm also continuing to message to our community that we're in a pandemic trying to work, and that it is not business as usual, and we need to release any guilt we have from not getting all the things done 100%. And that it is okay for you to take time to take care of you. I want to thank you, Tony, and the Hispanic Heritage Foundation Familia for the invitation to speak, but also for everything that you are doing to support our communities, especially as we're moving into this new wave of the vaccines and making sure there's equitable access to them. So just a lot of gratitude. And I don't know y'all, but I am feeling so inspired and so empowered about the power of our community when we unite and somos unidos. So thank you.
Thank you, Candelario. And I thank you for keeping it to a tight 5. Nice job on that. Next up is Adriana Pavon, who is Mexico Culture and Pride. And if we had an ambassador that's roaming across our countries and borders, it's Adriana, who is just an absolute force of nature in making sure that we're connected back to Latin America as well through culture, through entrepreneurship, and a lot of other ways. Go ahead, sister. Let's hear what you got to say.
Thank you so much for opening the space. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your story. I think something that we've seen throughout the pandemic among the community is that we as a Latin community are very unified, and we definitely love to show love for our community. I run an incubator based out of Mexico with a focus on bridging the gap of knowledge and interaction between our homeland and our current land. I've been running a creative space that helps entrepreneurs navigate how to work in a dignified and respectful way back with our communities that in turn represents them the way they want to be seen rather than the Anglo version of what it's perceived elsewhere. I've been running this program for the past 6 years. And during the pandemic, I was kind of frustrated because I couldn't support all of the communities that I work with in general. So I've decided to open up a little store that would allow the community to communicate back and forth directly with the consumers. We were successful, but during that time, my housekeeper lost her home. She's been with me for the past 4 years, and something that is important for me is to make sure that the people that I work with are treated the way I would like to be treated. And when she lost her home, was left homeless, besides the personal connection to being there before, I definitely appreciate her effort of showing support throughout so many campaigns that we've done out of these spaces specifically. We have reignited jobs for other people. We helped during the earthquake. She was cooking for 40 people. Like, I made my home a volunteer-based stop for people who were traveling to help some of our brothers and sisters that lost literally everything during the earthquake. She was a very intricate part of the success of us being able to help other volunteers. So when she lost her home, I was really, really sad, thinking like, what are we gonna do now? Because I definitely saw her as part of my team. But at the same time, I was overwhelmed by the amount of work that I was doing with my other communities. So I had to humble myself, and I had to allow myself to look beyond what I would usually do and open myself to receive love as well. Feeling overwhelmed and didn't know what to do, my first reaction, just reaching out to my community, saying, you know what, I'm gonna do a donation base. This is what happened. I wanna help the communities that I continue to serve. So if anybody within their means is to support and help, and I had an overwhelmed response to the campaign. We were able to fund for a couple of projects. Some of them who I was planning to close this year. So we were able to fund for her, Socorro's home. And I don't know if you have the slides for the process. A lot of what we do, but a lot of what we've been focusing on is how do we embrace our roots and our heritage and integrate them in a beautiful way in our day-to-day lives. So when I open up myself to love and receiving the support from my friends, so many showed up. We were able to secure home for Socorro. She was able to get her adobes done. Yesterday we went, she signed the very first one that she made herself that is going to go into her house. So it was beautiful to see how all of these 6 years that we've been putting collectively in this space has paid off. All of the people, a lot of the people that she received, that she has fed throughout the years because of our creative endeavors came back, and the love came back to support her. And that was a beautiful thing to see the friends reach out, to see the social responsibility from our partners, such as Sombra Mezcal. They end up donating a lot of the adobe bricks that we're gonna need for the house. We were able to fundraise for another community who basically are being appropriated by gentrification that's happening. So they'll be able to come back to work. And it's just really beautiful to see throughout this whole process the community has built, and then as well, the community has showed up, right? So thank you so much to everyone who has shared. Thank you. I see a lot of connectivity between Ernie, between some of the other panelists. I know Denise, etc. And something that is beautiful to see as well is that among the doers and makers, there's community and support as well. So thank you for the space, and hopefully you guys will be able to visit Mexico pretty soon.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Absolutely. So next up is my brother, who holds it down in Chicago and has his hands deep in the community. Vincent Casillas, CEO of Casillas Strategies. Let's hear it, Vince, and then we've got 2 more.
Great. Well, it's good to be with you, Antonio and Laura, here from snowy Chicago. Just want to thank you guys for putting this Charla together. You know, obviously there's been so many amazing stories, and you know, I am just you know, full of inspiration right now. But I just want to share 2 things quickly. How I've been able to kind of navigate, as many of you have, during this COVID pandemic. You know, I'm a social butterfly, and you know, for when the pandemic first started and we didn't know what it was going to be like, and then we did realize that this was pretty serious. You know, one of the things that I've always kind of prided myself in is kind of being a doer and trying to help out where I can. But when we were all pretty much on lockdown, you know, I started to realize that, you know, I felt a little helpless. And I remember, you know, I had just joined a business. Me and a business partner had been working. He had owned about 20 restaurants, and I was doing a lot of consulting for him. And one of the things that, you know, or one of the areas that got hit the hardest during this pandemic were restaurants. And so, you know, I was part of his team, and we went from like 1,000 employees to like 100. And so one of the things we started to think about is ways that we can actually, you know, employ these employees that we actually had to let go. And so, make a long story short, we had an extra empty building in downtown Chicago, And we decided to partner with a lab that was funded through the federal government to do free COVID testing. And we did it primarily because we knew we weren't going to make a lot of money off this, but we did it primarily to kind of bring some of these employees that we had to let go and get them some work. And then at the same time, we felt like we were doing a service in our own way in terms of providing some free COVID testing. So I could just tell you, we started out the first day with about 50 free COVID testing. As of today, we've done close to 50,000 free COVID tests. And, oftentimes it's people who, I go in there on a regular basis, I talk to people and they're like so thankful and, appreciative of the opportunity to do this. But the second part that I want to talk to you about just briefly is my own personal, experience. So I'm a man of faith, and during COVID, I would say this was probably around April or May when, we were pretty much on lockdown. We were told to stay home, stay inside, no contact. And I remember one time I was praying and I asked God, I said, God, what can I do? I mean, I feel helpless. I started hearing about friends of mine who had COVID. I started hearing about, people that I knew that were dying of COVID. And there was just this urgency inside of me that said, what can I do? And so I just remember in a still small voice, God saying, call people, talk to them, check in up on them and pray with them. And I thought to myself, that's kind of odd. I'm not gonna, it just seemed odd to call people that, maybe I hadn't talked to in weeks, to be able to call them and start to ask them how they're doing and all this other stuff. So make a long story short, Antonio, I started calling people. And what I realized is that people were hurting. People were isolated. People were getting depressed. People were going through a lot. And, I think social media was one of those areas where we stayed in contact with people. And on social media, we're always trying to put our best foot forward. We're trying to, make it look like we got it all together. Things are okay. We're hanging in there. But as I started to talk to people on the phone, as I started to call friends of mine, I realized what I was seeing on social media was totally different than the conversations we were having. And so I remember I would just, hey, how you doing? I would tell friends of mine, I would just say, hey, I miss you. I miss you. And then as soon as we, right when we were ready to get off the phone, I would tell them, I would say, hey, can I say a prayer with you? And at first, sometimes they would be like, huh, interesting. But they did. And so, I found in that experience, I was able to really, connect with people, support people. And so I just want to thank you, Antonio, for the Hispanic Heritage Foundation and all the work that you've been doing. I didn't know, I had an idea of some of the stuff you were doing, but hearing all the testimonies today from people who have been able to kind of activate their faith and their actions to help people in this pandemic has just been absolutely inspiring. So thank you, Antonio and Laura, for hosting this.
I have to tell you, Vince, that was so powerful how you ended that. That impact is as simple as a phone call to check in on someone and to let them know that you're thinking of them, to combat the loneliness, uncertainty, despondence. That was extremely powerful what you just said. So thank you for bringing that to us. It's not grandiose. Service is not grandiose. Service is simple. And you just made that point. All right, next up is a proud Mexican American, one of the most dedicated activist leaders I know, my baby sister. Please welcome Juani Torres, Senior Policy Advisor and Director of Community Engagement, City of San Antonio.
Hi y'all. So yes, that was my old title. I'm actually about to graduate with my master's in public policy from UTLJ. I'm so excited. But I'm tuning in from San Antonio, Texas. If you know me or if you know Tony, or Tony knows me very well, I love the Spurs. Go Spurs, go. So really quickly, my conversation today really is on the focus of mutual aid. And what does that mean? All of us here in Texas just faced a pretty terrible week last week, having no heat and no water. For some of us, over 7 days. For others, some of the coldest days in the beginning of the week. we had no heat. My family, and I'll just share this anecdote because it's important to the work that I have been organizing with others. We had to take turns going to the car to get heat. There were so many, and I appreciated Vince's words too, there were so many elderly that had nobody check on them, that had no heat, had no electricity, have no access to social media to know what's going on. And so where mutual aid comes in is understanding that at the end of the day, no institution is going to save us. What's going to save us is one another and the care we can have for each other as neighbors and the compassion we can share in everything we do. And so with that, I want to speak a bit about mutual aid. What does mutual aid mean? Well, mutual aid means being there for your neighbor, collecting resources that those that might have access can provide for folks that don't have that access. Something that has been going on because of the lack of water service and electricity has been a need for baby food, baby formula, for water bottled or sanitary items, or we're still in the pandemic, needed for medicine. There were so many folks last week that are reliant on dialysis, that are reliant on different really important medicines, that without their electricity, without their power, were unable to get that service. And even if they called 911 or if they called 311, with the number of incidents, what they really needed was a neighbor, another resident to come check in and help them out. So our mutual aid networks are run the gamut. There's just a lot of different community groups that are coming together, pooling resources, pooling funding, and then finding ways to distribute that with no strings attached. This is important because, as we know, with foundations or with institutions, sometimes we have to go through different processes, right? There needs to be applications, there needs to be accountability. When it comes to mutual aid, it really is neighbors helping neighbors. And so one of the organizations I'm part of is SA Stands. SA Stands, our work has been focused on helping undocumented families under the COVID-19 pandemic, but especially now after last week. FEMA is reimbursing families who have had damage done because of the Texas snowstorm. However, if you're undocumented, you don't have that access. So what SA Stands and groups like us are doing is filling the gaps. Community coming in together and thinking, how can we use our networks, our resources, our community to help those that are even more vulnerable that others are not thinking about? So in the chat, I'm going to put, and you probably read about this, GoFundMe, unfortunately, has been one of the key partners in a lot of the mutual aid work because, again, when the government isn't delivering what the people need, it's neighbors helping neighbors and pulling resources. And so SA Stands here in our organization, none of it goes to us. It all goes directly to mutual aid. And we're helping undocumented families in San Antonio get service for their water, for their electricity, for lost wages, a whole week of not working with rent coming up. Our undocumented families are very much in need. Children passed away from hypothermia last week. Elderly passed away. The government was not there. The Texas State Legislature was not there to help us. And so it really came down to mutual aid, community, and our familias caring for one another and being resourceful and resilient in whatever way we could be. So thank you for your time. I'm grateful to be here. If you are ever in San Antonio after this pandemic, let me know. I will take you to have the best tacos and watch a Spurs game together.
Thank you so much, Juani. And I love it. Filling the gaps for the needy through community, helping community, mutual aid. Thank you for your leadership, Juani, because it comforts me to know that you live in a place that needs help and that you're able to provide it. And you've been that way since I first met you when you were a student. Last up is my man, Reynaldo Casas, who is the Director of Community Impact and Chair of the Texas Rangers Inclusion and Community Impact Council. For the baseball team. And if you know baseball, you also know who you have hitting last in a lineup. Just kidding, Ray. You're always a cleanup hitter for me, brother. I've known this guy for a very long time. I love him like a little brother, even though he's like 6'4". And I am very grateful to have him in my life. So, Ray.
Thank you, Tony. I always tell everyone that, I work in Major League Baseball because of this man, Tony. I've worked on Capitol Hill because of Tony, and I've had a great career in television and entertainment because of Tony. I'm also single because of Tony, because he gives really bad relationship advice. But I'm honored to be with everybody. such inspirational stories, and I know that my story will not measure up to everyone else's courage and talent that everyone has shared today. You know, I think Candelario said it really well earlier, that we are truly recovering here in Texas. Being in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, here at Globe Life Field, we've sort of been hit with a double whammy with COVID, and then of course the blizzard storm that really ravaged Texas. You know, I lived in New York City and Washington, D.C. for 15 years, and this certainly was not the worst storm that I've experienced, but Texas as a state we were not prepared. And we're still really hurting from everything that we've just gone through the last few days. We have been set behind with vaccines because we were not able to travel on the roads for a whole week. Testing and vaccines we've just really been struggling getting back to the same par that the rest of the country is at right now. I'm proud to say that we will be hosting and vaccinating about 30,000 people a week, thanks to FEMA and thanks to President Biden. We're honored to be hosting the vaccines here at Globe Life Field starting today. It's really exciting and impactful to see everything that we're able to do for the community. But you know, the one story that I did want to share with everyone that really touched me was during the snowstorm last week. You know, I was just reaching out to all our community partners and trying to see how we could help out. And one of the organizations here in Arlington that I sit on their board, an organization called Safe Haven of Tarrant County, they're the largest service provider for those that have been abused by their partners in domestic violence. And I remember reaching out to Catherine Jacob, who's the executive director of Safe Haven. And she, right off the bat, was in tears. And I knew something wasn't right. And I asked her what was wrong. And she said, you know, I've been working in domestic violence and domestic violence services for over 20 years. And I just heard one of the worst stories that I've ever heard. And she had just received a new client that came by. Mind you, the roads are snowy, there's ice on the roads, but she had to get out. And the night before, she waited till her abuser had gone to sleep. And after many, many hours of rethinking everything, she had grabbed a bucket of boiled water to try to sneak out the back door and defrost her car so she could get away. And as soon as she got to the car, her abuser caught her, poured the bucket of water on her, and this lady had suffered severe burns to her face and the rest of her body. And the unfortunate part was that she wasn't able to make it to the hospital until the next day because her abuser dragged her back inside the house. That story really touched me because I grew up in a house of domestic violence, and it was one of the toughest stories to hear, especially when you're stuck in the snow, you're stuck in the ice, and you totally feel helpless. And my job working in Major League Baseball is to help communities that need it. And I just felt totally helpless. So once I heard that story, I was able to reach out to our ownership group, and we talked to our owners, and we sort of explained some of the things that we heard from this story. And, you know, we were able to make a sizable grant to Safe Haven. And, you know, I share this story not necessarily to, you know, sort of pat ourselves on the back, but I wanted to share this story because, you know, there are people that are prisoners in their own home right as we speak. Whether it's icy roads, whether it's snow, whether it's sun, it doesn't matter the time of the day. There are people that are living as prisoners in their own home. And, you know, if it's one thing that I've learned, you know, empathy is so important. It is It is something that we're lacking in this country today. And, you know, empathy can be taught, it can be learned. And I think that our community has done a really good job. I think Tony has done an amazing job through the foundation at teaching empathy and teaching others that may not have walked in the same shoes as others, but can certainly understand or try to understand, want to understand the issues that our community is going through. So the story does have a happy ending. This lady was able to find refuge. She was able to escape her abuser. We are working on finding her a safe place to live. And, you know, obviously not all stories end in happy endings, but I can tell you that as a baseball team and as an organization, we're doing our very best to help those in need. And I know you all are doing the same. I also want to thank Southwest Airlines for their commitment to our community. Southwest was a sponsor for our Faces of Freedom program with the Rangers for a few years. And I want to thank you all for being a part of this and supporting the foundation and just giving us a platform to share our stories. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. I was very moved by that. I've seen that sort of thing growing up firsthand as well in different people's households, and including my own. And it really is a connection that you're triggered when you hear about these things, and you never want to feel useless when you hear these things happening. So I thank you for taking action, and I love you, brother. And what a way to close out this Charla. It has been very moving for me. It's been I'm inspired, I'm energized, definitely moved by all of you, and I'm not going to come down for a while. So anybody wants to keep it going, you're welcome to call me on my cell phone and we'll talk. Thank you everyone for being part of this Charla, the speakers, but also everyone in the audience that has been weighing in. Thank you, Laura and Southwest Airlines, for bringing the love and sharing it with us through this Charla every time we fly as well. And I just want to finish after all of this, that none of us are helpless. All of us can act. And that is demonstrated by everyone who's been here. And the greatest antidote to trauma, loneliness, mental challenges is love. LUV. Thank you for sharing it with us today. Love all of you. Have a good weekend. Keep spreading love.